because it does
That's scratch.
degrade it. No, it eats away the ceramic coating faster than what it's supposed to, because,
Okay.
you know, car wash is clean with chemicals, right? I mean, it's a fact.
And the
You got some
brushes
that
and
bang
the
your car,
rest.
but at the end of the day, it's pretty much chemical cleaners.
Yellow is
Buffer zone.
Yeah, so what I wanna do is I wanna do background files, GPS, you walk around so you can know what it is.
What part is Millbury? 'Cause one of the
Then I'm near
buildings is
they're
in
closer to
Millbury.
Boston River here.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the April 20th, 2022 Sutton Conservation Meeting. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. New message to read in. Pursuant to Governor Baker's February 15th, 2022 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Sutton Conservation Commission is in a hybrid format with both in-person and Zoom components. To join the meeting, visit www.zoom.us/join and enter meeting ID 879-2331-8099 and passcode 787083. This meeting will be broadcast and recorded on local public access station Verizon 31 and Charter Spectrum 191 and live streamed on the town's YouTube channel when available. A recording of the meeting will be made available after proceedings on the town's website and YouTube channel. And we have Jamie Marin, Mike McGovern, and myself in person with Zach Peliquin on Zoom tonight. So that does give us a quorum, is that right? Okay, perfect. First thing up, another one I have to read in is a new one. It's 6:30, a public hearing, notice of intent for Providence Road. In accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sutton Bylaw 12, Wetlands Protection, the Conservation Commission will hold a hearing to review a notice of intent, NOI, submitted by UGPG RE Sutton LLC, Sutton, Mass. The hearing will be held on Wednesday, April 20th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. The project consists of construction of 2 commercial buildings, stormwater management systems, parking lots, grading, utilities, mitigation, and associated site work at Providence Road. Welcome, guys, and if you could state your name and address for the records, please.
Good evening. For the record, Matthew Pekarsky, Director of Construction and Development with the Craft Group, here tonight on behalf of the applicant. With me tonight, we have Scott Morrison from Ecotech, David Liberdoni, who's legal counsel, who is joining us via Zoom, and Keith Curran, who is here as well, our project civil engineer with Bowler Engineering. So, as you may recall, we were here before the commission a few months ago regarding the Unified Parkway subdivision, the definitive subdivision of the parcels and the roadway that bisects the property. And, you know, at that time, I mentioned that we'd be back before the commission for the next phase of permitting efforts, which would be buildings 2 and 3. And that's why we're here tonight, is to present this project for consideration tonight for a notice of intent application. Excuse me. By way of overview, and I won't get into too much of the detail because Scott's going to cover it all, but for those that are familiar with the site, you know, our project site is roughly 440 acres of land, and generally speaking, we have three buildings that are planned for the site itself. Buildings 2 and 3 are situated on what I'll call the southern portion of the site, zoned in the office light industrial portion of the property. You know, building 2 is roughly 640,000 square feet. Building 3 is roughly 340,000 square feet. Both buildings will be used for the purposes of Unified's current operations within the town of Sutton, meet their existing demands they have for warehouse space right now, and then obviously moving in towards the future with the size of these 2 buildings. So that's kind of the project. And on the graphic there, you can see the previously approved roadway is kind of bisecting the site on that graphic, going from kind of page left across the bottom to page right. That's the now approved Unified Parkway. that the private road that bisects the site, and then Building 2 is the larger of the two buildings, kind of center page, and Building 3 is to the right there. When we were going through the approval process for the Unified Parkway and that NOI hearing process, the commission may recall that we were asked to submit a plan that showed the overall layout of, the property, as conceptual as it may be, and we did provide that as part of that process. And that graphic had a very similar configuration that you see in here to Building 2 and 3 in terms of the layout of the buildings themselves. One thing that we did hear and took to heart during that process was, the potential impacts that conceptual layout we presented at the time could have. And we were mindful of that. So with that, we went back to Bowler and to our project architects and asked them to, look at the design and the layout and the configuration of the buildings and figure out ways that we could reduce the impacts on there. And I think we have a pretty successful story to tell in that regard. And Scott will, elude the benefits of those improvements and changes that we made to the design from what was previously shared to the commission. Before I turn it over to Scott, I just did want to point out one final point here. We are going through the site plan approval process on this as well. So that has been filed with the planning board for Buildings 2 and 3. Our first public hearing is actually scheduled for this coming Monday. We'll be presenting that project, in the context of the traditional site plan approval. So obviously we'll answer any questions that, the commission may have along the way. We're going to wait till the end, but we're happy to do that as we go through this. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott, who can talk through the specifics of the project itself.
Great, thanks. Just for the record, Scott Morrison from Ecotech. As you look at this plan, as Matt indicated, Unified Parkway, which is on the lower end of the project, was recently permitted. The stormwater features associated with that roadway, if you look, are the purple stormwater basins that you'll see that run along the roadway. So I think there's 4 of them. 3 you can see on this sheet, and one's actually shifted over along Boston Road. So that was approved previously. The current plan before you is for Buildings 2 and 3. Also, Wilkinson Water District is also part of this notice of intent application because there needs to be some modifications to the access to the well site, as well as the water mains leaving that water site. So again, proposed Building 2 and 3, parking, access roads, parking areas and loading docks are proposed. There's a retaining wall along the, if you're looking at the top of Building 2 to minimize those impacts. That building was kind of stretched out and shortened some, which allowed trailer access from the east and western sides of that building, as opposed to the ends where you've got the power lines on one section of it and forested areas on the other. The sewer from this proposed project will go around the backside of Building 2 and will run out on Hatchery Drive, within Hatchery Drive. And then again, water will be, the Wilkinson Water District will get access off of the parking lot. And then there'll be an additional water line that goes to the south towards the power line easement, and then it'll run in between, to the west, in between those 2 stormwater basins back to Unified Parkway. Again, we've kind of gone through, I guess, kind of the most important aspect of this is the avoidance, minimization, and mitigation aspects of under the local bylaw. So there's no direct impacts to any wetland resource areas. We've designed the project to avoid steep slopes. It's required to avoid power easements, and works around the Wilkinson Water District, which is that round circular property kind of in the middle of the site there. The plan utilizes the existing disturbed areas to the extent possible, and all buildings are proposed completely outside 100-foot buffer zones. So we've worked hard to avoid. As far as minimization, the Building 2's been modified and reconfigured, which eliminates impacts to the buffer zone or upland adjacent resource area by about 10,000 square feet. Stormwater basins are required essentially where they are because they're the low point, so we've got to get water to drain into these. I'll touch upon kind of the stormwater drainage system in a minute. So there's 124 acres of land. About 40.3 acres are jurisdictional, and of that 40.3, only about 3.5 acres of this proposed project are within regulated areas, so the buffer zones are upland adjacent resource areas. We really tried to minimize and kind of use the existing site disturbance to the extent practicable. And as far as mitigation, we've kind of taken a multi-pronged approach. The bylaw allows several things, for instance, invasive species eradication, cleanup of junk, permanent conservation restrictions, creation of permanent vegetated buffers, infiltration of stormwater before it reaches the wetlands, water quality improvements, wildlife habitat preservation or enhancements, or any combination of the above. So as far as mitigation for this particular project, we're including restoration of just over an acre of existing disturbed buffer zone. So there's areas that are disturbed, for instance, the access road that comes into the Wilkinson Water District. And if you recall, I'm not sure if anybody recalls being on the site, but there's the old, there's like an old stump dump for the piece of property that the town of Sutton used to own. So areas like that, we're proposing to clean up and replant those areas within jurisdiction. Again, we're removing stumps. We've got about 9,165 square feet of stumps and logs and other debris that's proposed to be removed from that parcel. It's, if you look on this plan, that would be just north of Building 2, in between Building 2 and Unified Parkway is where that work. What's that?
The other graphic.
Yeah, we can, if you want, we can jump to another graphic. I sent you there was 2 sheets. Maybe kind of helpful to show kind of the details of the impact areas. Yeah, so this plan here highlights, you know, it's got the entire property and the different colors. So areas in green are proposed impact within the upland adjacent resource area. The yellow areas are areas that are existing disturbed, which we're proposing to restore by planting, you know, native trees and shrubs. The orange area that you can see on the left-hand side of the page is where that stump dump, where that will be removed. Once that stump dump's removed, that will also be replanted and restored. And then the dark blue or purple areas are areas that are existing disturbed, that will be restored. They're existing disturbed, and then there's some impacts, and then it'll be restored back in kind to those areas. So one of the other kind of a big aspect of this is we're on an existing gravel pit. Mass DEP stormwater requires about 91,000 cubic feet of infiltration, where the proposed project proposes almost 490,000 cubic feet of flood storage or stormwater storage and infiltration. So that's almost 400,000 cubic feet more than is required. So as I was looking at this today, I was trying to grasp up like what's the size of that. Essentially, if you fill a football field, it would be just under 7 feet of stormwater is the amount in a heavy rainstorm, major storm, that will be infiltrated. So there won't be a discharge off of this. So the water will be infiltrated. So there'll be, again, no discharge, which I think is critical to Cold Spring Brook and that cold water fishery. So it's really regulating those temperatures and providing those base flows to that stream, which is very important. And we're also proposing kind of wildlife corridors. So there's a wildlife corridor, kind of the top of your screen, if you look, that runs north-south along Cold Spring Brook. That will be maintained, no incursions beyond the limit of work, so that will remain in its natural state. The other aspect, kind of wildlife corridor, if you look in the lower section, kind of lower left-hand section, there's a wetland system that comes up from Providence Road that extends up into the Wilkinson Water District property. So this proposed project includes replanting. There's a roadway that cuts that area off. So we'll replant that area, renaturalize it, so it'll kind of open up that whole entire corridor. It'll prevent that obstruction kind of in the middle of it. So it'll open up that corridor, so you'll have some permanent wildlife corridors on the site. So in conclusion, we believe that the project complies with the avoidance, minimization, and mitigation requirements from the Town of Sutton Wetlands bylaw. And it's our opinion that this multi-pronged approach of mitigation provides the mitigation required under the local bylaw. That's a pretty good summary of the project. We can flip back to this plan if you've got questions. We can open up the detailed plan sheets if you want to look at something specific. But I'd be happy to answer questions if the commission has any at this point.
Thank you both. Good overview. Brandon, Greg, did
Thank you, Mr.
you guys
Chairman.
look at this as well?
If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna let Greg do the initial synopsis, and then I'll probably jump in after.
Go for it. It's your floor, Greg.
So just to first get this out there, there's no DEP file number yet, so we won't be able to close anything tonight. But as far as wetland impacts on site, the only impacts are going to be within the 100-foot buffer zone AURA of bordering vegetated wetland. They're staying completely out of the riverfront area of Cold Spring Brook. And so just BVW work is what we're talking about here. As Scott said, no buildings inside the 100-foot buffer zone or AURA of those BVWs. It's mostly going to be paved area, retaining walls, slopes, grading, things of that nature. Once again, as Scott said, 3.5 of the 40.3 total acres of AURA and buffer zone on site will be disturbed. That includes the cutting of 261 trees of greater than 5-inch caliper size. They do have a mitigation plan and we kind of just went through it. Mitigation area A, B, and C, which involves the plantings of some native species like Quercus, red oak, American beech, sugar maple, white pine, witch hazel, staghorn sumac. So there are some mitigation efforts in play here. Besides that, there's no BLSF on site. That hangs pretty close to Cold Spring Brook. Zone 2 wellhead protection area in the southern portion over here, or I looked at it on the map and I'm not sure where
Yeah,
that
the zone
overlaps.
2 is around the water district property. So if you can look, I think it kind
Yellow
of
circle should be the zone 1.
Zone 1.
zone.
The zone 1 is the 400-foot diameter circle there, but then that black dashed line that kind of extends up into building 2 and around, that's the
Okay.
zone 2 boundary.
So this is that
There you
zone
go.
2 wellhead protection
Correct.
area right here. No areas of critical environmental concern. And besides that, no outstanding resource water areas.
Right, which there are none in Sutton to begin with. There's no areas of critical environmental concern, so not an issue.
That's pretty much where we're at right now. We have not been able to get to our field review, so we've not reviewed the wetland line. Another thing we plan on doing in the next 2 weeks is taking a walk around the AURA and looking for more potential areas that are pretty well disturbed that could be part of the mitigation plan. So in 2 weeks, we'll have all that information for you guys.
Yeah, and hopefully a DEP number as well. So, we're just in the initial stages of the review, and tonight is, the initial show and tell and initial questions. We're gonna start getting into the real meat of it in the next couple of weeks. In addition to that, I guess I have some initial questions. I've been looking at these maps you have, and I see where, the edge of the solid lines are with the grading, but the actual limit of disturbance, you're gonna need to do work, around it. So how in addition to what you show here is gonna be needed?
There is some, for instance, like to the left of Building 2, there's grading required around that stormwater basin.
Right, and I.
This is really, our intent was this, to kind of provide an overall plan, so we could go through the detailed sheets if you want.
I
Kind
got
of
it.
presentation purpose, I thought this was one of the best, to kind of go through things with.
It's nice when it's color-coded.
I'd like to see the sheet that shows
Okay.
the limited disturbance.
Yeah, because I
Got
think,
I was gonna ask the same, because I mean, that was my
I
big
think
question.
if you go
Yeah,
to
these plans
sheets-
don't show really a whole bunch of detail. And on the north side, it looks like you have a wall.
Yeah, if you go to sheet 402, C402, it shows the limited grading.
Is that the other plan set?
Yeah.
Right, you still need room for a wall to work around it. While Bruce is, not Bruce, Greg is doing that, what are you proposing for erosion sediment controls?
Similar to what's out there, silt fence and silt socks.
The
The
biodegradable silt
biodegradable
socks?
Silt sock.
Okay.
I have a question, just as we go along, you said we could. I drove by today and I saw like a really colorful sock by the edge of the road on Boston Road. It looked pretty heavy duty.
It's like black with like a,
I never saw
Stripe.
one before. It looked
With
really
an orange stripe,
like a high quality.
it's probably the Filtrex
So
brand.
I'll make a suggestion if we're gonna talk about, those biodegradable ones are great for certain areas, but they don't last long and they don't add much protection. They don't. That sock that I saw, I know you're gonna clean it up because it's gonna be right on the edge of, but is that something you would rather use than, these biodegradables, they don't last long. You'll be fixing them the whole construction.
that's one of the problem with the biodegradables.
And on
but
a bigger-
it's required here in,
They're good for single-family homes, with
Not
there's
required.
not a lot of
It used-
slope.
It's not a policy, it's not in the bylaw. It was just something we used to suggest that we
Oh.
highly strongly asked for. So since then, we've taken another look at erosion control
Okay.
and try to be more practical, mindful for cost. It's a great idea on small projects that are in the woods or areas that you aren't gonna go back in for like one-time disturbances. But I think a lot of the construction you're gonna be doing is gonna be in areas that there'll be a lot going on. So I don't necessarily myself wanna see all biodegradable. There'll be areas, I think, that you should use them.
Okay.
We like to think that the engineer and the wetland scientist will look at the areas with steeper slopes, create better barriers. We might need some straw bales with black silt fence on some of the steeper slopes. We may need that, like that sock I saw, for some flatter areas that you know you're gonna go back and try to clean it up. It's just easier to work with, and they last longer. And the goal is to protect the resource area. And do we all agree that that method would be better?
yeah.
So I
it's fine
think
with
that's,
us.
just so they know as they look forward for a limited disturbance and hay bale lines, I think we should use different products in different areas, not just, we have a policy, maybe it used to be something that was talked about, but I don't believe that there's anything written in place that says that that has to be that way.
I think it was written into the order conditions for at least the roadway project.
Maybe that was different.
It's been, the biodegradable socks have and the straw wattles as opposed to hay bales have been standard in the order of conditions for a very long time. But it doesn't mean that it has to stay that. It can be changed on a case-by-case basis, so it's not like it's written into the bylaw and it can't change.
Do we like my suggestion? I think it makes sense for construction.
What is the construction period? What are you anticipating?
The current phasing right now would have these two, we're obviously seeking approval for both buildings, but the phasing would be building 3 first. That has roughly a 16-month duration. Site work's probably something less than that for the most part. And then building 2 would then follow, at some point after the start of building 3. So it's, a couple of years.
Yeah, yeah.
But obviously the building 2 measures, we'd only put out what would be required, in this initial phase for building 3, and then we'd set out fresh and new when we start on building 2. The site contractors we deal with, they don't like the biodegradable for that very reason. So we're not opposed to putting traditional down, and it really just comes down to removing it afterwards. But it seems like more often than not, we put the silt fence with the wattle anyway, so you gotta go back and pull that out, so it's not that much more effort to pull out anything that's non-biodegradable.
Like I said, we leave it up to the engineers You should look at the site as an individual, not as this whole, like, generic. It doesn't accomplish what the goal is. That's just not my opinion. I think the rest of the board shares it now.
Okay.
So that's like the approach with.
Brendan, I have through the chair, I have a quick question. Zach on Zoom.
Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
What was the original reasoning behind the use of the biodegradable straw wattle or the biodegradable wattles?
I have that. Easy. When construction's done, the non-biodegradable wattles and silt fence were often not removed, and then they just get, buried and never biodegrade.
Okay.
And they're just there after 20 years. Perfect example, way in the back end of behind Market 32 is a buried silt fence from over 20 years ago that you could still pull out. It's not like it's even falling apart. It's just still solid, but it's half buried by the detritus of leaves over the last 20+ years.
Just another reminder is that I think a change we've made is we require all siltation. When you go for your certificate, your
Compliance.
compliance, we expect it all cleaned up. In the past, they had left erosion controls, thus, and that's my point.
Right. It requires oversight, which
It didn't
20 years
work,
ago
'cause
you really didn't
like you
have
just
it.
said, the black silt fence got left. You guys just made that comment. Like I said, if you're using biodegradable wattles, that means that's all you're using. That it's flat areas, it's gonna be out in the woods. It's not really, it's more of a barrier line. Maybe to absorb a little bit of something that could happen, like a little bit of spill of sediment or something, but they don't do a lot, and they don't last long. I mean, in 2 months, they're full of holes, they're flattened out, and they're not doing anything.
Right.
So yeah, they're biodegradable, you don't have to pick them up, but they don't really create any protection.
Right, but
And that's the whole purpose of them.
my only recommendation on is if you're gonna use a nylon sheathing, is that it be a complete nylon sheathing. Like, don't do the nylon mesh. They're bad for wildlife. So just do a like a the Filtrex ones are. It's smooth
Brandon,
on the outside.
And he's bringing up a good point, and like, I think you said, the sock that I saw, that I commented on, is that like a standard material that you like? Because it was the sock, it wasn't the netting.
Was it
It
the
wasn't
orange one?
biodegradable, it was very heavy duty. It'll last through construction, it will actually stop sediment, and it can be cleaned up. And so you get the gist. So if there's areas in the woods that you're just kind of running it to mark out limited disturbance to have, that's where you'd use biodegradable, with no black silt fence. Because there's really nothing's gonna happen there, it's more the barrier, right?
Yeah.
So I think we're all saying the same thing. I mean, we do agree that the inexpensive nylon full of holes isn't our favorite. We don't like to see that.
Right.
Those are the unfriendly ones.
Yep.
Right.
You get it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Go ahead, Greg.
Well, this site plan has the more established limited disturbance, which is this line that goes right across the top, I believe.
Yep.
And then this is where that sewer is coming in from Providence Road.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's down Buttonwood.
And then it's just,
Buttonwood or Hatchery Drive?
Oh, sorry,
Hatchery.
Hatchery towards
Hatchery.
Buttonwood.
And did you say, Scott, that Hatchery's gonna be restored? What is that?
Well, they'll trench it, put in the utilities, and then restore it.
Back to what it was before. Okay, so it's
Well,
not like.
it will still need to serve as an access point, though, because we need to be able to access this basin on the backside, on the north side of Building 2 for maintenance operations, so we can restore the edges and, probably more than it is right now, and make it so it doesn't, right now we're currently maintaining it so it doesn't wash out. So we can establish a more definitive maintenance path through there.
Okay, I have another question. Scott mentioned invasive species eradication. What area or areas, and what do you mean by eradication?
That's listed as one of the mitigation measures that the town of Sutton has.
It's been one of the accepted ones.
One of the accepted ones.
Is that proposed?
We're not proposing it beyond the extent of the footprint. So essentially the footprint of the buildings and infrastructure and parking lots and everything will reduce the autumn olive and Russian olive stand by about 40 acres. Of that, there's probably about an acre that's within jurisdiction, so just a small fragment. But keeping in mind that you're removing 40 acres of this noxious invasive plant, I think you're providing an overall benefit because you're eliminating that seed source, which in turn wildlife's gonna take and deposit it all throughout Sutton, you know, whether it's in jurisdictional areas or not, but, so it's kind of an added bonus as a result of the project, where it's not specifically, you know, we're not trying to claim that is mitigation, but as a result of the project, it's gonna result in about 40 acres elimination of this material. And for the same reason, the building one that's under construction, they went in and mowed probably 100 acres of autumn olive and Russian olive down and
There's
eliminated
no
that
doubt,
whole
no doubt.
material, so.
Okay, I'm ultimately going to recommend that Appendix G of the Stormwater Report, which is the operation and maintenance plan, be included as an in perpetuity condition. Is there any objections on the applicant's end on that so far?
No, I think it's an ongoing thing that's pretty standard.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing regarding the stormwater, because we are in Zone 2, Scott gave a very easy to follow, I guess, visual with DEP for this site. I guess that you've calculated that 91,000 cubic feet of stormwater is going to need to be infiltrated. What is the design storm on that?
That's what's required. DEP requires the 91,000
Yeah, based on
based upon Mass DEP stormwater standards
right, for this particular design.
for this particular project.
Right.
But the project proposes over 489,000.
Okay.
So it's almost 400,000 cubic feet more than required under Mass DEP standards.
That's for a 100-year storm.
So you're doing the 100-year storm. That's what I was getting at.
Well, it's not exactly for 100, it depends on the basin, but Keith Cowan from Boulder Engineering, that's actually the total volume of all 5 basins, at surface to subsurface. Sorry, you gotta come into the mic. For our friends at home. Sorry, Keith Cowan with Boulder. Yeah, take it. Yeah, sure. Make yourself comfortable.
Could you spell your last name?
Yes, it's Curran. So Keith Cowan from Boulder Engineering. So it's not set for that. Basically, that volume comes about, there's 8 total subsurface infiltration areas. There's 5 at grade and 3 subsurface chamber locations. That is the total volume when you add up all 8 of the areas, right? Below the exit, like the lowest orifice, for example.
Yeah, the invert.
They invert, yeah, for all of them. So it's not necessarily for the 100. Some of them, they actually takes the 100. Some, it only takes the 50. But the point is, that's the total volume that is infiltrated before it leaves. It actually goes out the outlet control.
Right. So Zone 2, you generally have to infiltrate the first inch within the first 24 hours.
Which we've done.
So
yes.
are you going beyond that?
Yes, we're going beyond that.
By how much?
Well, that's the first inch. That's the calculation. That 91,000 cubic feet. That's the inch.
Right. That's
So-
that's the first inch, and then
Yeah.
and it keeps on going from there.
Correct.
Okay. So I have a silly question. I don't know how much it means for stormwater, but for example, when you have a septic system and you have sandy, gravelly soils like you have here, sometimes infiltrating that fast can be a bad thing because you could potentially contaminate the groundwater because the effluent's going down too fast. And I imagine there's going to be effluent. There's going to be, you can imagine there's going to be oils and greases and other kinds of pollutants associated with normal operations in cars and whatnot. Is there any concern or design requirement to potentially slow that infiltration down because it's going down to the groundwater too fast? And the reason why I ask that, it's not necessarily in jurisdiction, but we get the Wilkinson Water District nearby.
So it's kind of different than a septic. So what we have is we have the deep sump hooded catch basins, and we also have the 4 bays. So that gives you the treatment. So therefore, it's clean by the time it infiltrates. So we're getting the oils out because they actually sit in the sumps because you have the hoods. So you're not sending anything contaminated into the groundwater by infiltrating these areas.
Do the four bays have a certain level of filtration as well?
No, I can go double check, I don't believe so, and they're sized based on, to get to the required DEP requirements for the, pollutant removal.
Okay, and for the underground infiltration basins, what's the pretreatment on those?
There's an
So-
isolator row.
The what?
It's called an isolator row that is built into the system that acts as a forebay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all, it's the same, it works the same way
As a four bay.
as a forebay, and those are also sized in the report.
Well, you certainly have the right soils for doing any, underground. But give me a quick rundown on what the O&M for checking and cleaning one of these underground facilities would be, because we don't see too much of that in town.
I don't have it memorized right now. It's actually in that, it should be in that O&M report, actually, to clean just the forebays and also the isolated roads.
I'm just testing you.
Yeah, so I don't have it actually off the top of my head. I actually didn't bring the full report with me, but
That's okay.
Yeah.
I got it if you need it.
you
Thank
have
you.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also part of the whole O&M
Yeah, well, this is why
Yeah.
I recommend
make
that
sure,
the
yeah.
O&M be a in perpetuity condition. So they're gonna have to follow it for the life of this, so it's not like in 3 years, when the permit expires, then they don't have to do anything. Like, they're gonna have to continue to follow, and the commission will still have jurisdiction should these stormwater features fail.
Yeah, you only get that credit, really, if it's working properly, so you don't, the idea of treating the pre-treatment before you infiltrate, if you don't maintain them, like I said, per the O&M, it's not working the way it's supposed to, and you could potentially have that issue where you're sending oils into the, infiltration basins or the chambers and into the groundwater. Another thing important to note that Scott didn't mention is that was important to the Wilkinson Water District was the idea is they wanted us to make sure that we were recharging that area, right? So there's a certain discharge point, so we actually check the volumes of recharge to that specific discharge point. And it's above and beyond what it is now required, so.
Building number 1, which is not part of this NOI, is that in a different sub-watershed? And therefore, we don't need to see the stormwater calcs or stormwater infiltration infrastructure associated with that?
Yeah, it would be in a different area, again, it would be actually outside your jurisdiction, but same thing, there would be a full drainage report that would go with that submittal.
Right, well, here's one of the
Yeah.
funny things about the Wetland Protection Act and the bylaws, that normally, jurisdiction only occurs once an area subject to protection, a buffer zone, is altered, right? So we're talking about physical alteration, like you can go right up to the 100-foot mark, like 99.9 feet, clear cutting, but it's not necessarily jurisdictional and you can't require a permit. But when it comes to stormwater, the stormwater can begin far outside of jurisdiction, but if the water is flowing into an area subject to protection in the AWRA or buffer zone, then the commission has the jurisdiction over the entire project, because they need to know what's going into your jurisdiction, what are the potential impacts, right? So if you got water coming from building 1 and it's gonna be discharging to one of these detention basins within the AWRA, the commission has the full right to review what's going on in other places, even if it's 1,000 feet away. So my question is, will any stormwater from building 1 or any of that other infrastructure be going into jurisdictional areas here?
No, it'll be its standalone, that lot 1, as you wanna call, will have its standalone stormwater drainage report dealing with its own stormwater on that specific site.
Which will be far away from the
Which will-
wetlands or the buffer zone.
Correct.
That's what I wanted to, I just wanted to trust but verify that.
And I think to ease your concern too, is I would expect that through the planning board process, there'll be an engineering review of the stormwater system.
Is
for
it
lot one.
Graves Engineering doing the review
Yeah,
as
I assume
usual?
that'd be the same one for.
Yes.
Yeah, they do all the towns review. I personally have a high degree of confidence with their work. And it's the same review, they do the same review for the planning board as if the Conservation Commission had required them to be working for the Conservation Commission.
Is that report underway? Do you know if the peer review is in process?
Yes.
It is. We actually had a call with them this afternoon with Bowler and our VHB, the other engineer on our project, so, and Jeff Walsh had indicated that They're well into it. No comments as it relates to building 2 and 3 at this point.
Any ideas to when it's gonna become available?
He estimated, he said the end of next
And
week.
next week or the beginning of the fall.
Yeah, it was after our first public hearing.
So we'd have the benefit of that for the next conservation meeting.
Next one is.
Well, at least a response to comments, or
I don't know when the
have
next
they
one
even,
is.
yeah, have they even issued comments
They
yet?
haven't, no, they haven't issued comments
Okay,
yet.
so that's
Yeah.
still, what, silly question, when was the site plan review application for planning board submitted?
The 30th of March.
Okay, so right around the same time as the Concom.
Yeah, we would respond to that anyway, so, I mean, as I alluded to earlier, we expect this process to go hand in hand, similar to the roadway, so we're fine with waiting until you guys have a chance to review that and our response to comments for that matter, because,
That would be my only concern is that, it's obvious that you guys are going to great measures to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to, but all I'm hearing to some extent is blah, 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 right? I need the Graves report and their due diligence and is important to.
Yep.
I see a lot of soil logs here. Presume that you did those soil logs in the areas of the stormwater
correct.
structures.
Correct.
How was that done? Was it, I see, okay, CAT 235C, so you were actually digging holes and going in and analyzing the soil, you weren't doing it through geotech?
The geotech did actually log, but they actually dug test pits and logged them, and that's what you're seeing in the report.
Okay, so,
So that they can determine obviously what soils we had, but also where the estimated seasonal high water elevation is.
okay, and what professional did that?
I was Sanborn Head, and it should be on the logs that they're just certified to do that.
Right.
That actually insert that you see in here is actually from Sanborn Head.
Yeah, I see it's
Yep.
logged by Z. White.
I can get the exact person.
Zach
if you
White
want.
is the
Yeah.
civil engineer that's on the site.
So the civil engineer did the actual
Correct.
analysis, on-site analysis, so it was a PE that did the analysis. Okay, that's, I just want to make sure. Thank you. Also, I'm all set on my end. You got anything else, Greg?
We do have, seems like one person on the hearing that's raising their hand.
Okay. Does the board have any questions before I go to online? All right, we have a question from someone raising the hand online?
Yes, good evening. My name is James LaPlante, 26 Heritage Road, Sutton, Mass. Relatively new to the area, been here about 4 years. I appreciate what the Conservation Commission has done as far as their attention to the stormwater management and their concern with the MS4 permit. My question is, what actions have been taken by the Conservation Commission and Unified to ensure the water quality of our neighborhood in the Dudley Road, Heritage Road area and that aquifer? Because I know at some point, I mean, I'm a little bit ignorant on this, but at one point I have heard that aggregate was not allowed to blast anymore regarding water quality issues with that aquifer. Maybe you could enlighten me a little bit. I mean, is there anybody taking any actions to preserve our aquifer and any impact this project could have on that with the blasting, perchlorate, maybe causing fissures, dry well situations, things of that nature?
Solid question. I'll turn that over to you. Can anyone answer that question?
Yeah, I think the simple answer there is that Mass DEP has stormwater management standards, and we're required to meet those standards. Bowler Engineering has prepared documents that comply with those standards or exceed those standards. The town's going to have a peer review consultant which will review those to confirm that those are in full compliance with the DEP standards. As far as blasting, the blasting work is associated with Lot 1, which is well outside of Conservation Commission jurisdiction.
Excuse me, but I was not speaking to the stormwater effect of our area. I was speaking on the possible effects this would have on the existing aquifer that this neighborhood depends on.
I would say that the aquifer is the aquifer currently is related to infiltration, which is gonna be mimicked upon completion of the proposed project and through the engineering design.
Right, but I believe the geology would show that we are pre stormwater. Our aquifer comes, as far as the flow goes and the geology goes, shows that everything runs towards the aquifer that you're discussing as stormwater management. Now, I'm wondering what actions have been taken to protect the people of this community and their reliance on that aquifer, causing a fissure, perchlorate contamination, anything along those lines. Has anybody taken this into consideration?
I can speak to, although it's outside of the intent of this filing here, but from a Lot 1 site preparation work and the blasting operations, we've met with the appropriate town officials, obviously applied for all the permits and secured all of that. From a blasting materials plan was put together, a blasting plan was put together, shared with the town, and it was, as far as perchlorates go, they're not allowed anymore. That's a thing of the past. We've documented that and shared all that information with both the town and the Wilkinsonville Water District. Their engineers have reviewed it. I don't want to speak for them, but the feedback we got from them was they were comfortable with everything we submitted. The active management of the work site itself is such that the grading plan, the SWEP plan, and the I'm trying to think of the word, the erosion control, the stormwater management plan during construction is set up that everything is actually being directed away from the aquifer. Thus far, through the blasting operations, we've had no water coming out of what blast material has been put in there. We obviously did look at this. Sanborn Head, our project geologist, looked at this extensively through the exploration that we've done on the site, through multiple boring locations throughout the hillside. And we looked at the overall impacts to the area. And from their professional opinion is that, the blasting that we're doing is going to have no impact on that aquifer through that area. So again, outside of what we're here for tonight, but I just share that as in the context of some of the efforts that we have gone through as it relates to the work that we're doing out there right now.
Okay, now, like I stated earlier, I don't want to prolong this too much I'm just looking for a little more information. Aggregate at one point had their ability to blast removed. Their permit was revoked. And I know at that time, from what I hear from neighbors, that there was a strong groundswell of support against them and their blasting because of the fact of the impact it could have on the aquifer, like sediment. You're disturbing it, you're rising sediment up within the aquifer. It's getting into the pumps. It's getting into, I could send you a picture of my toilet tank if you want, and we can measure the depth of the sediment that's in the bottom of that right now. And I find it hard to believe that nobody is taking any actions to protect the current residents of this area from this. Right now, my washing machine will not run with cold water because the filter keeps getting jammed up with sediment.
Clarifying question. Is the aquifer in question the same aquifer as the Wilkinsonville Water Community Wells? Is that what serves the Dudley and Heritage Road area?
I can't speak to that. It's outside of our property, that whole area, so I'm not sure how far it goes. I would think it would be, but I don't know. I can't say definitively.
I get it.
I don't know to speak of. Just to let you know, I've been a water quality professional for the past 16 years in both the drinking water and wastewater side. I'm currently the superintendent of a municipality. In that aspect, I just believe it would be in the best interest of the town, the Conservation Commission, Planning Board, and all that, to ensure that the impact to this area is minimal, if not anything, nil. And with that, I'll pause on that. But we spoke earlier about a DEP file number, and there's none have been issued. There is one DEP file number located on Dudley Road, which is basically an access road to the power lines. Is that any way part of your project?
That was most likely part of the interstate reliability project that went on over 10 years ago now, when they replaced the poles and added some new ones. That was a project that went from Millbury all the way to Putnam, Connecticut.
Yeah, the DEP number for this specific project we're discussing tonight has not been,
Yeah, it hasn't even been issued.
it hasn't
so,
been issued,
yeah.
so.
Okay, I just know because these signs are new, relatively new within the last few months, that on that side, just before, I believe it's
I know what it's
Leia
on.
Circle,
Roadway.
Yeah,
there is a new DEP file postings on that access road.
there's actually, Mr. Chairman, the National Grid came in last year. They're gonna be doing some work on, I forget the number of the line, but in the northern part of town, that starts at the Millbury line and actually ends at the Millbury line. It kind of goes in a loop. And the commission hasn't been notified that they're getting ready to begin work yet, but if they're getting the signs up, it's probably getting close.
Okay, so,
Okay, because I was just wondering if this was a potential driveway to the HUD housing that had been discussed at the last sewer commission meeting. Because we're really not sure where that's gonna come from. It was stated that it would be coming off of Dudley Road, and we're just wondering where that potential site would be.
okay, that, we're gonna have to kind of cut this off because we're getting off track of conservation. But to
Well, yeah, I understand, but just something I wanted to throw out there, and I'm interested to find out what the Conservation Commission, the elected officials of the town of Sutton will have to say about the water quality issues of the existing aquifer that serves so many residents.
I have a question,
Okay.
Bill. Is he on a private or public water? Is that what you were trying to ask?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get
So is
to.
it private or public, sir?
We are on private.
So it's a
We have a
private
well.
Right. So when you
Right.
say you have sediment in your house, it just concerned me, because if it was town water, I mean, that would be an issue, but, I mean, I have a well, I live in town, nowhere near there, and I just had sediment in my well last week. It's very common for an artesian drilled well to get sediment.
Yeah,
Just so he
not with,
knows,
with,
I'm
with
not a
the, not with
professional,
the
I'm not-
rate that we've
sir,
seen
I wouldn't
recently.
speak over you. Just allow me to talk, please.
Yep, very well.
You asked to make sure the town had things in place to protect the townspeople. And I don't think the engineers are getting into depth, but I'm sure there's seismic measures taking place when they're blasting that lets them know how far the blast went outside their site, which is documented heavily by insurance companies, by the construction companies, to assure that there's no damage outside certain areas. Some of tonight's meeting is to ensure you townspeople that we are doing everything. We talk about stormwater, the process, the state regulations. I would want everybody to understand, because this is a public meeting, that, I mean, you're under scrutiny of so many regulations, so many things they have to abide to be able to do this project. I think well water is a concern in an aquifer district, and from what I can see, you've been working hand in hand with the water company to make sure they're doing monitoring, they're doing testing. Is that, you know, we're not getting into detail because we'll be here till 2 a.m, but
That is correct.
let's just assure everybody who doesn't understand it, who just hears the, you know, comment on the internet about, oh, they're blasting down at Unified again, and then people get concerned, and I would be concerned too. It's a big project. But I think our experiences on our board since it started is extreme professionalism. We've had a few small minor problems when I say, we had a flood last year. You had just started the project, and we had some sediment get washed under, I mean, I think it was a Saturday or a Sunday, and the response we got was one of the best we'd had as far as cleanup, making sure what took place. So I would want the town to be assured, from what I can see, there's a high standard being held to this project. So if we ever saw there wasn't, I would definitely want that brought to our attention. That would be a great concern for me.
And I did preface my comments with the fact that the Conservation Commission is doing their due diligence on the MS4 and the stormwater impact that this project would have. My comments were more suggested towards the areas that depend on this aquifer. And I did not mean to cut you off. I thought your pause was a stop. So I apologize for that. But in the same aspect, and it's still the question's not being answered. What steps are being taken to mitigate any impact it would have to the existing customers on the aquifer? That's all. I'm just, I'm not trying to stir the pot or anything. I'm concerned, and I've spoken to the neighbors, and they're all concerned also. I mean, what led to aggregate being shut down and then not being able to blast? This is something I don't know, and
I think that's where I gotta cut it off though, because that's off the topic of conservation right now. We can't go back to what happened with aggregate or what did not happen, and I don't wanna cut anybody off, but we're getting off
no,
topic.
I understand.
And we're at the 1 hour mark of this now, almost an hour, so I wanna turn this over to the public or anybody else on the board. Are there any more questions, or do you guys have anything else before we continue this for the next couple weeks or whenever you want?
Well, thank you for your time this evening, and
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to the next meeting.
I guess if the commission doesn't have any more comments, I think we could probably just continue this. Let the planning board kind of process play out, let that peer review process kind of come to completion.
Is 2 weeks enough time?
I don't know if we'll have comments back from the peer review or not by that point. So our hearing's on the 25th, that because of town meeting, my understanding is the next planning board meeting isn't until the end of May. So I think we have almost a 3 or a 4 week window before we would have our next
And I
meeting.
know it costs money to come, but why, on such a large project, I'm sure we could talk for at least 15 minutes to not have to talk so long the next one. Because would you have the limited disturbance line done by then, things that we could discuss? I mean, we did.
The limited disturbance line is done
Yes,
now in the
yeah.
plan sets.
Yep.
I mean, it's in there's a complete filing, about 46 sheets. That's the NOI plan set, the formal plan set. The graphics we presented today are just that. They're just graphics for, and granted, the limited disturbance wasn't properly shown on those, but that's, I believe, what Greg was pointing out there. It's that dashed line that's on there. It's basically runs parallel with the erosion control line.
We can scroll through all the pages, Mike, if you would like to.
Yeah.
No, I think Bill's right. An hour is a lot of time, and you start to not be able to absorb it.
And
All right.
that also includes the erosion control plans, so that shows what other means and methods that we plan on using for the erosion control.
And
So again, if you have some comments.
at the same time, we're gonna be taking these files, these sheets, georeferencing, turning them into, TIFF files as background files, putting them in our RTK survey level GPS and walking the site, so we'll know exactly where we are in relationship to all of this.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So you guys want 4 weeks out, or do you want 2 weeks?
Can always continue it further if.
Yeah, why don't we go 2, and then we'll find out. We'll get a better sense of where we are with
Yeah,
the feedback.
and if you're
from
not
peer review.
ready or you wanna continue for 2 weeks, just reach out to
Yeah.
Wanda. We'll just open it and continue it another 2
I
weeks.
think that makes the most sense.
So that would be what day and time, Wanda?
Hold on, Wanda, how many minutes are we doing? We still in 5-minute increments as opposed to the 15?
Yeah, but,
So if it's at the beginning, then it won't.
there's already
have to
one
wait
at
15.
6:30 to 6:40 for the Blackstone pump station.
Okay.
So it would have to be 6:40 to 6:50.
So I'll make a motion that we continue
Should be May 4th.
Providence Road to May 4th.
6:40.
At
At 6:40.
6:40. Need a second?
I'll second.
Mike
I'll
made a
second.
motion. Jamie seconded. Mike, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And I, Bill, vote aye. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next up at 6:35, it's now 7:29, is a 285 Putnam Hill Road, and if someone wants to make a motion to waive that reading,
I'll make a motion to waive the reading of 11 Eagle Drive.
285 Putnam Hill Road.
Oh, sorry, 285
Jumping ahead.
Putnam Hill Road.
I'll second.
Mike
I'll
made a
second it.
motion. Jamie seconded. Mike, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Jamie, how do you vote? Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye, Bill, vote aye. Welcome back, guys. Sorry for the wait.
No, that's quite all right. For those that weren't with us last time, my name is Jared Savory. I work for Toper Land Surveying. I am here with my client, Donald Zango. And do we have the plan? When we brought this plan in, we were heavily into the 100-foot no disturb area, and I do apologize for that. Since then, we have pulled everything back. We are proposing a 4-foot-ish wall on the outside, and that's going to be hugging up against your 100-foot regulated area. And because of the size, we went that way because that's going to limit our grading out. So then we're going to come back in to the patio, and it's going to step up another 3 feet to the house level. So really what is now concern is the erosion control barrier. That's going over the line just a hair bit. I do apologize, and I would like to ask if we're allowed to do that. Okay, and we then talked about this planter up on the northern edge of the property, and we were all concerned with the septic area we went through, and with current field shots, we actually took the location-wise, and we matched it up with an as-built drawing that we had in our office, and we derived the 15-foot breakout limit, which is 592.83. This planting area is 15.7, so you're talking about 8 inches more. So we're well outside of our concerned area for the septic. I did some personal investigation around this. This planter, it's a decorative stone wall, and it only sits in the ground by about like 2 inches. It literally that, and he's filling into this area. So what you see with the grading here is just a catch-up grading to meet existing from the septic area. So, really simple.
Good update. I bet you guys wish you were first tonight, huh?
I know, no kidding.
Brandon, Greg, do you guys take a look at this plan?
You want to take a crack at it, Greg?
Yeah, they pulled everything besides the erosion and sediment controls out of, or back into the permanent limit of disturbance. So theoretically, there should be no work. Obviously, and what I'm concerned with is they're gonna have to. How are you gonna do the work that close to the permanent limit of disturbance without actually encroaching on it and disturbing some of that hayfield that we wanted, or the commission wanted kept as a hayfield?
I know that the last meeting, there was a comment made about going into this area by a little bit, let's say. I guess that, is better than going into it fully like we had it. I mean, we were just darn near into the wetlands, and, shame on me for that. But I do understand that we're gonna be disturbing some of that land.
Is it temporary work?
It's gonna be a temporary work.
Is the footing, is the material for the footing gonna go into the hayfield?
We will try to keep that out as much as possible.
What do you what width are you gonna need for the footing with the, your any gravel you're gonna need to be bringing in? The concrete, et cetera, et cetera.
That's a good question.
So that, what we see here
Yeah.
is the part that's gonna stick out of the ground. What's gonna be in the ground, and what disturbance you gonna have in the ground?
And typically with the footings, they are about like a foot out from the wall anyways, in a sense. So yes, we are within that area.
But it's temporary.
Yes, and everything's gonna be loamed and seeded back to original conditions. Like I mentioned, I put a note on the plan because it did come up in a conversation about bringing in construction equipment into this, and we're coming in through the side of the garage and trying to limit as little as possible, and we're going to basically reseed and loam, or loam and reseed that area as well. So we're in the process of doing the, bringing it back to natural throughout this project.
Perfect, thank you. Send it over to the board. Any questions?
You guys. So it is what, I think what Greg was trying to get at is, so explain construction to me, how you access, do the cuts and fills and do a project of this magnitude. When I see, so you, the side of the house, how do you like, what's the,
It was the access
yeah,
plan.
what's the plan? I mean, what's the,
Yeah.
I mean, I agree, you did a great job, the retaining wall, he moved it back.
Right.
But how do you pull this off?
That's a good
And then
question.
I have another question, that chamber,
Yep.
what's your plans for moving it? Cause it's into all the retaining walls and it's very shallow. We had some issues and had to have it, and we've personally done site visits, and it's not very deep in the ground.
So we move it?
What's the plan for, that's all your stormwater, that's
Yes,
what's capturing
yeah.
all your rooftop water, and you've got retaining walls over it.
That was also, not to interrupt you, that was a hard fought chamber to get built because the
I'm
commission.
not opposed to it being outside, I mean,
Right.
it recharging, it's stopping, so I mean, you know, I know we're saying don't go outside the pre-disturbance, but we weren't, so they came with a plan that showed grading, so during construction, I think we're gonna have to allow the limited disturbance to be moved. I think that's what Greg was getting at.
Yep. On a
Is-
temporary.
We like, I think we all like the idea of the end result, but to get there, we're
Yes.
concerned of how you're getting there.
Right.
That's, my only concern. I do, I think the finished project's perfect, it's everything we talked about.
Okay.
But just so that you don't create an expectation that we have to say, what are you doing? You're way outside limited disturbance, oh my God, you guys. And then
Right.
you're mad at us because we're giving you a hard time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So the only thing I would wanna understand is how do you pull that off? And I'm okay with going outside the limit of disturbance if it's protected correctly. You need room to work. I mean, that's what Greg, right, I'll say it one last time, that's what Greg was getting at.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us how we're gonna move the limit of disturbance and we're gonna pull this job off and work?
Okay.
How's that?
That's.
Because maybe you were just trying to please us too much?
No,
That's
that's.
not what we wanted. We just want you to have a successful project.
Oh,
I mean that
understandable.
from the bottom of my heart anyways. And I know you two, that, everyone here just wants success for all of us, so.
Right.
Let's-
Keeping it within that limit, there was a very hard fought, this was a hard fought project to begin with, and that permanent limited disturbance was hard fought as well. And it had to get adjusted because it wasn't built the right way. And then the infiltration chamber for the roof runoff, basically the commission had to hold up the certificate of compliance until it actually got built. And now if it gets buried, what if it, how are you going to maintain it to continue to make sure that it works? So that's a good point that Mike
Yes.
makes here.
Yes.
Well, let's make it simple, that's easy. What I'm saying is something like that can remain under the hayfield. So our goal, I think, is that the limit disturbance is restored. It's, the other side's a hayfield.
Yep.
You're gonna need room to work, we wanna understand how that work would take place.
Right.
You got no room on the side of the house, I mean, I know you're gonna want a dump truck back there, you're gonna want a skid steer, a little excavator, like, right or wrong?
Right. No,
To
no,
do
you're
this
totally
project,
right.
that's what you're gonna need. And I think as long as the limited disturbance is restored, I don't think the goal is to protect the resource area, so if you're in it temporarily for a disturbance, but it ends up what we're trying to, I think
Move it back.
that everybody
In the
would be
same
happy.
state, right. So
Right?
you're trying to keep the same wildlife habitat characteristics, which would be, grassland, right? Having a Caltech unit for infiltration, like the whole point is that you're protecting the water quality, but also helping to continue to recharge the wetland. If it's, where it is now, or if it's a little bit more in the field, I think it still serves the same function, and the temporary impact could probably be not so much overlooked, but conditions to make sure that it gets done correctly in the end, and then once it's complete, then you'll have the same level of protection.
Can I ask Greg, so I see the 25-foot, we all know that's where it gets really sacred, like, I mean, then you're close, you're really into a resource area. I mean, I don't wanna say to go to the 25 feet, but I think if you gave yourself 15 feet, set up a nice erosion control, not something,
Yep.
I mean, expect that you might get a heavy storm. Just do a good job with it, and
Move
you
it
probably
back.
won't have any trouble. You gotta give yourself some room to work. Remember, the expectation when you call for the certificate of compliance is the field's back, the granite bounds are in, that it's growing, you know, and that it's just to the way it is today. That would be the expectation. That's what we are trying to accomplish.
All right.
So would you want to make that a special condition on the project?
Yeah, because we don't want to hold, you want to get going. I'm
Please.
sure the drier season's coming, you already got to, I'm fine with that being a condition.
Right. All right. And could that be addressed in a report, or do you want a specific plan, you know?
I think we could read it.
So what I think in the past too, so when you do your pre-construction meeting, you understand that process, that's another thing. So if you have any questions, just being a homeowner, and there's a process once this gets approved, right? You know, your pre-construction, you install your erosion control, get a letter from your engineer.
Yep.
Call Brandon, set up a pre-construction meeting. So why don't we make it that you have an updated plan to Brandon that depicts exactly what's gonna go on prior to your pre-construction meeting?
Okay.
And usually if Brandon's okay with it, we're okay with it, so.
Thank you.
You're not changing the scope of work, you're just giving yourself,
Right.
so the approval is with the special condition that there's an updated plan showing the revised limit of work disturbance.
And you want that 15 feet off of the
Is
current.
15 feet enough to work? I
The
mean,
Thank you.
15's
Yeah.
fine.
does that sound like?
That's.
It's gonna be a wall in the back. Pretty much, there is no grading, no.
No, I know, but
Yes.
still, someone's gonna have to
Yes,
stand on the
the
other side of
machine,
the.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
yes.
I know that.
Thank you, yeah.
We were setting you up to fail if we
Yeah.
said, sure, this is the plan, and then we go out
Thank
and
you.
you had to go, and the contractor's gonna say, well, I had to do it because I couldn't do the work. And then we weren't
Thank you.
saying you couldn't do it, it's just you, once again, didn't follow, it's just all about following a stupid plan.
Okay.
You know, having a plan, going by it, and just do it.
Now, once again, just a clarification with that, the Coltech unit. Could we put that within this area?
I'm gonna let Brandon,
Well, underneath the patio?
Well, actually moving it
to
out.
the limit of the easiest thing to do is move it into the limit of disturbance. It would still be, it's underground, it's under the field.
Right.
Yeah, move it into
But,
an area that's not gonna be underneath the patio, but
Right.
still within that 15-foot offset from the wall.
Okay.
Is
Yeah,
that,
that's well said, yeah, because that'll be then the disturbance, you could probably turn that chamber and go.
Oh, I got a million and one designs going through my head now, you know,
Not that,
trying to do.
it's a simple little project.
I know.
God, I mean, we don't have, that's what I'm saying, I don't need it overthought.
Right,
Just
right,
Make sure
yeah.
it gets moved out and it still works when you're done.
Not underneath.
Right, it does its job, that's all, I didn't want to tell you how to do it. But I know under 2 retaining walls probably wasn't gonna be a good scenario.
No.
Do you want anything after the work is all complete to make sure that that hayfield is brought back, if any?
So let's
No,
ask
I-
this, so you know what we like to do, and this is a complicated, there's a lot going on, is give a timeline. I know you have 3 years, but your intent is to do this year?
We'll starting this year. Our plan is to find a contractor and to start this
So
year.
you got a process ahead of you.
Yeah.
Yes. So probably after July 15, you know.
okay.
So Mr. Chairman, clarifying point, before, when you, were talking about the adjustments that you made to the plan, you referenced that you were outside of the aura, but it doesn't appear to me that you are. You're outside of the permanent limit of disturbance that was,
Previously approved.
but when I look at the red line is the 100-foot line,
Right.
all of it falls within the aura, as does that planter box, which we haven't really discussed.
I guess to clarify, Jamie, that area was already approved for disturbance, so if they wanted to maintaining that area as a lawn, which they were, that was okay. So the question is, how comfortable is the commission with converting lawn to what you see here?
I just asked the
For the
question.
chair,
Yeah, Zach.
what is the distance from like the pool to the, I guess since we have the 25 foot, from the 25 foot to the pool, how much more distance is that?
Probably 25 feet, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
looks like-
don't have a specific number.
Looks like that
Okay.
LOD line's more or less split in
Yeah.
in between, so it's probably about 50 feet away from the BVW, that LOD line, with which
Okay.
is where the granite bounds are. And I'd also like to state that one of the design elements is a dry well for the pump out.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's one of the mitigating factors is, the pool, in the fall is the big one when you're pumping out the pool.
Drawing out.
You're not letting the effluent go into the field and then into the well, and that brings up another question is what is the intention on the treatment of the pool? Is it gonna be a chlorine pool? Is it gonna be a salt water pool? Is it gonna be a bromine pool? What is it gonna be?
Probably a chlorine pool.
Chlorine pool, okay. So then I'd say it's very important that the pump out happen into the dry well as a condition, as an in perpetuity condition, that any pump out cannot be put into the field, but it has to go through the dry well.
And there is a dry well specified on
Yep.
this plan.
So that's a nice little
Do you have-
mitigating factor.
Is there any, like, criteria to it, or is it just a circle saying you're doing, what is that dry well?
And you bring up an interesting point. One of my coworkers actually said that today. He's like, "Do you got a detail on the plan?" I'm like,
That would be good to have.
Yeah. So I would like to ask the commission if I could supply a plan with a detail, or supply a detail alone.
Chair, the only reason why, and I'm glad Brandon brought it up,
Yep.
that's probably our biggest thing that we should worry about.
Yes.
It's all slope, it would go directly into the resource area.
Mhm.
And chlorine, I'm sure wouldn't be good, I'm sure that would not
That would not be good.
a good product to, why don't we do this, if you don't mind, and I'm asking, what if we just continue to one more meeting, get us a detail on the chamber, just extend your limit of work, which is understood, make sure it's clear that it's gotta go back to
Right.
the limit of disturbance.
Mhm.
Just get the plan right. Let's
Show the relocated cul
relocated Coltech.
Yep.
But the biggest thing now that he says it is, I just would wanna make sure that, not that it should be expensive, it could be, but it has to be done correctly, that it doesn't get sediment in it and stop working.
Right.
And that it defeats the purpose in a few years. Cause none of us are, no one's going to check.
Right.
I just wanna make sure that, and I don't think, if you don't have a contractor, and if this won't slow you down, cause I would say that we're gonna approve with these few modifications, so I mean, that you're all set. You're not gonna get stopped where, just trying to tweak a few more, is that cool, whatever, does that sound?
Right.
Cause when it starts to be more than one thing, the plan, if we were gonna slow you down, you had a contractor waiting, I think we could do it, but if you don't, let's just do one more meeting, fix the plan,
I agree.
explain, is that cool with everybody?
And with the detail of the cross-sectional detail of the sump hole.
Yep.
You could add a plan note with a long-term, your in perpetuity operation and maintenance plan for the sump hole. Like every once in a while, you have to dig it out and put in new stone or something like that, whatever you think is appropriate.
Okay.
So I had a bad, that's why I brought it up, I did this once, and sleeves got in it, and it was, because there was no room for any volume, like the chambers actually create area for if leaf gets in, it still kind of work. I just would like to see something more than a hole with crushed stone. But I don't want it to get complicated, I'm not trying to make this project any harder on it, but just, I think it's the only important detail that really is gonna matter, that could actually be a bad benefit of this.
Okay.
is that.
Usually there's some kind of a cover, like in the summertime, the kids are running around, you're not using it, so you don't want them falling into it.
Right.
And then you open up the cover, and you put the hose into it, and you just pump it out into that, and then when you're done.
Oh, okay, so you're thinking that,
Throw it back on.
yeah, I just didn't have I was thinking hard pipe from over at the filter, and it just did it, and it dumped it in, and,
I've done a lot
but it
of,
could be that.
I've done a lot of pool designs for my private clients, and that's.
No, I'm happy with simple, like I said, I was not looking for you to come back with some intricate, just, that's probably a good
It
system.
would be good to get this one detailed, considering it's a tight area, and because we've been to the property. Zach, before we continue, do you have any more questions?
I do not have any more questions.
And anyone from the public?
I have one more.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Does the application include the planter box that we have?
Looks like it.
No, but I mean, the actual application that we received for.
The application has to be ratified for that.
So the
Yes.
planter box is included in.
The last meeting, we asked them,
Yeah.
they didn't show any of it. We noticed it when we did a site visit. So I guess the question, like he said, we didn't discuss it if you wanted, like, I think it still absorbs water the same way as a planter box is. I don't think there was really any change in use. It looks different.
Right, but one thing that I don't see is proposed grade, so I imagine you're gonna wanna level that out, 'cause it's gonna be a
I
planter
thought it was done.
box.
Didn't it have flowers in
wasn't
it?
filled.
Oh, it wasn't finished?
It wasn't finished.
Oh.
It was done late.
Okay.
Right, so I'd show proposed grades on the planter box, yeah.
Is that good? Yeah.
Alright.
Show the finished grades on it and.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, you guys are the engineer, so it has no impact on the septic system.
right.
I mean, it's off the field, it's in the breakout area.
Yeah, it's well outside the breakout area. I mean,
And that's allowed?
Yes, you
You
can,
can take material away, but you can add.
right.
That's basically what you did, right? You did not take away, you added.
There's nothing, there's no difference there.
It's not gonna slow down infiltration or anything
No,
like that?
no, it won't.
Oh,
You-
it's breakout. I mean, you'd be worried about, if they take away, that's why, I mean, it's
Yeah.
good to add, it's not
Well,
good to take away.
well, one thing they say that the foundation of the wall only went down 2 inches, so let's say it went down 3 feet, and you've got breakout, and suddenly it hits the wall, how's that gonna?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean? And it you know, it's not, I guess especially, it's mostly a Board of Health issue, but
Yeah.
the commission's, like
I
to
mean, it's-
communicate.
It's very shallow in the ground. Right after, the day after the last meeting, I went out there and looked. Extremely shallow, and I took these measurements. I made sure my field people took very accurate and detailed measurements out there for that purpose. And the information that we obtained for the as-built was actually the same information that went to the Board of Health for the code compliance.
Awesome, thank you guys, so. Wanda, did you have, a date and a time if we continue this?
Yeah, so it'd be May 4th at 6:50 PM.
May 4th, at what?
6:50.
6:50. I'll make a motion to continue 285 Putnam Hill Road till May 4th at 6:50.
I'll second that.
Mike made a motion, Jamie seconded. Mike, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And I, Bill, vote aye. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I didn't check, but do we have a DEP number on this one yet?
Yeah.
Yes.
0965.
We just received that.
Next day.
Next up is 11 Eagle Drive. Gotta read this one in. In accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and the Sutton Bylaw 12, Wetlands Protection, the Conservation Commission will hold a hearing to review a request for a determination RDA submitted by Michael Lucier of Sutton, Mass. The hearing could be held on Wednesday, April 20th, 2022 at 6:40. It's now 7:50. The project consisted of 3 to 4 dangerous and dead trees that were removed at 11 Eagle Drive. Welcome. Your name and address for the record, please.
Michael Lucier, 11 Eagle Drive, Sutton.
Welcome. So, I guess the trees were cut, and we're just here to just do an RDA after the fact. Is that right, Greg?
Yeah.
I was unaware, sir, of the situation and in the procedure, I guess. And those trees were, as I showed Greg when he went a couple times, how those were the ones where it's leaning right towards the house in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And there was a few trees down a ways, about 100 feet from there, that came down this summer, that came down all the way across the driveway. And at that point, we were pretty much concerned, as you can see from even that tree that was behind you right there, it was all dead in the center all the way through, and all those trees that were there were dropping these big dead branches, so we didn't do clear cutting, or we actually liked the trees there, it looked nice in the backyard, but it was more of a concern for the safety of us and our home. And
No worries.
If
I think you did the right thing cutting them down.
if I would have known, I would have been here first, but it wasn't
Hey,
aware.
I drove in there, I didn't see anything cut, so I'm like, I don't know, it must be the wrong place, but I didn't look on the right side, so, pretty straightforward. Greg, anything else on this one?
Yeah, I just 4 or 5 trees cut down in the 100-foot. It was probably 25 to 50 feet off of that. There's a stream down on the far side of these trees. You can't really. Let me see if I can.
So that's how it is today. This
That's
picture,
correct.
still very natural.
So we got one here, and they left the stumps, so sediment wasn't dispersed into the streams. And you can kind of see it right here, and it falls along the backside here. So I would say between 25 and 50 feet off of that stream.
Board have any questions?
Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for coming. Sorry for waiting
Thanks
for.
for understanding. Well, thank you for understanding. I gotta say, you were way over my head on that first meeting today.
I jinxed us because I said we'll be in and out of here quick tonight, and I was wrong again. Anyone, Zach, anyone at home? Okay. So typically when we have dangerous trees, we ask you to replace one for one. I don't know what the circumstances are here because it's Pleasant Valley, the condos, right? So technically, I don't know how that works. Anyone know?
Are you allowed to plant trees?
If we go to the board and ask permission and all that, but,
Well,
I mean, I'm willing to put a couple
speed, I
in,
mean,
but
they
that
it
whole,
looks pretty heavy. I mean,
yeah.
just
it's all manicured area for, it's, again, I've only been there for a year, just to let you know, and when I came, it's all manicured, it's all mulched, it's beautiful, it's beautiful. It's all, it was that way when I got there, I didn't do all that.
is there anything you want to plant, like that you would just keep it?
Well, talking to Greg, again, like my wife was saying too, I mean, we'd have no problem with planting some type of bushes or some natural stuff there. I mean, we can do it, we'd love to do something there to fill it back in a little bit. But we want to do something.
So if there was 5 trees to 5 bushes?
Yeah.
That,
I'm okay with that. I'm more than willing to do that.
Yeah, as long as they're natural, native,
Right, oh,
sorry,
yes.
native to the area.
Right.
Condition.
And I could talk to one of the landscapers as well that I know and have him recommend something and put something in for us as well.
So
It'll-
what do you
it'll happen.
recommend for a condition, Mr. Chairman?
5 bushes?
Five bushes is fine, yeah.
Okay.
Same rough area.
Okay.
Same.
And with the amount of trees falling, I mean, there was one that fell on Osby Road 2 months ago and hit a car with someone leaving work from PV, so.
Yeah, I knew that we were out of power actually with that for a while.
So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing? Or is it on an RDA, do we?
You gotta close the public.
Well, you go to the public first.
Does anyone from the public have any questions?
You did, he did.
I think I did.
Oh, I didn't.
I forget. It's been a long
I
night.
do too.
Well, you did it twice, right?
Seconded.
It's all
Double
good.
checking.
I'll second it.
Mike made a motion to close the public. Jamie seconded. Mike, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Bill, vote aye.
I'll make a motion for a negative determination for 11 Eagle Drive with one condition of 5 bushes to be planted.
I'll second that.
Mike made a motion. Jamie seconded. Mike, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Bill, vote aye. You're all set?
So is there time involved, or do I gotta call you and let you know when they're planted, or they're gonna be done, so?
We've let
Oh, this
people
is
do
already,
it.
like, it's already
Huh?
done.
It's already,
Good faith thing.
yeah.
It'll be done, I promise you.
Are you in Dr. Singh's old unit?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great spot. Beautiful
Yeah.
spot.
He was a great guy, actually.
Great
I've known
guy,
him
yeah.
for quite a long time, but
Yeah.
when I was in Webster.
One of the nicest areas there at PV. Good for you.
Beautiful, thank you very much.
All right, have a good night.
Everybody, thank you.
Thanks for coming in,
Appreciate it.
okay? Next up, minutes of 4/6/2022. Everyone review those?
Did. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of 4/6/22.
I will second that.
Mike made a motion of the minutes. Jamie seconded. Mike, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
I'm going to recuse myself since I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. Does the three of us, that will work, or we're
Oh,
still
yeah,
making?
3 out, you
okay.
got 3 out of 5, so you're good.
Yep, okay, and I approve. Okay. Discussion of 188 Burbank Road. Wanda actually went out to this one. They called for water in the
As did
backyard.
Greg.
Oh, as did Greg with double trouble here. You
That's
guys want to
hers.
fill us in?
Yeah, so the residents at 188 Burbank are worried about ponding. Pretty much you have wetlands on all sides of the house. On the upgradient side, which is the right side of the house, there's some ponding going on. The owner of the house showed me.
Wouldn't share it.
Oh yeah, let me just pull up a good picture of this area. Showed me an old pipe that generally ran from this ponded area across the lawn Now it's not switching. Across the lawn. So this right side right here is where it's really ponding up, and it was a little drier today, but they sent us pictures where it was even coming into the lawn over here, and going right up to the pool. He said this is the worst it's been in 3 years since he's lived there. Again, they showed me an old pipe that came from this general area, ran under the lawn and discharged on the far side into the other wetland area.
So why would that be, Greg?
Why
Why would they have done that?
It's our belief that this was filled. This is all filled in wetland, and it happened before the '83 production of BVW and the 500 square foot rule that comes with filling in BVWs. So it was, what we were thinking is that that pipe was put in there back then when they did all the filling to drain this uphill wetland, make sure it didn't pond up, and was able to get to the far side of the yard. As of right now, though, it seems as though the part that I can see from the far side was crushed, and the part on this side is filled in and covered up. So it's not functioning right now is really the issue, and now they're getting a serious amount of ponding on the side of the yard.
So is there a solution?
The only thing I could think of would be an in-kind repair and replacement of that pipe to help facilitate that water drainage back to what it was doing.
Then do they need to file for that?
They do not,
Why?
because it's an in-kind repair and replacement. Those are allowed under 310 CMR 10.
Fix the pipe.
Greg, you passed the test.
Sorry to put it
Could
through the
the
motion, but
bonding be a result
I
of
thought
something
it
else,
should
like
be
a
multiple
failed
choice.
leaching field, or
Well, no, I looked at it. The only construction that's going on up here, I don't know if you guys remember the project, is off of Olivia Lane.
yeah, that came into the commission land last year.
Yeah, and I think
Tom Murphy.
Tom Murphy, his company is building the project right now. But I took a ride over there, and there's actually a hill in between, so I don't see how water from that construction site would be getting down to this area or increasing water flow to this area. I think it's more of a function of that pipe not functioning as it used to.
is that why we were made aware of this? Is they thought that this might be tied to the construction of the adjacent house?
They did. And maybe it is. You know, I couldn't get into the woods back there and trace exactly where that water's flowing. But there is a hill in between, so it's not like it's running across the road and straight down into there. Maybe it's taking a circuitous route and going around that hill. I can't speak to that, but
I have to believe it's the pipe.
yeah,
Oh, the pipe.
Have them do an in-kind and repair on the pipe, and if it doesn't correct it, then we,
Yeah, then you really get serious about it, huh?
yeah. But that's probably pretty easy fix, I would think.
Yeah, the pipe was crushed and it filled with whatever.
And once they fill, they fill.
All right,
So it like split
in-kind
on the
repair.
top and
Move on.
opened.
In-kind repair, good.
Yep.
Anybody, any questions? Okay, 200 Worcester Providence Turnpike, the Red Roof Inn, any
There's been
updates?
some email correspondence on that, not too much, but Wanda, you got some.
He did call, and he was supposed to be here tonight.
So,
He said he was
this is the
gonna
way we
come,
left it.
but-
we were gonna reach out, make them aware that it runs up July of next year, was it?
23, yeah.
Okay. So, until that point, we couldn't do anything, but that if it wasn't completed by July, that we would be probably on their doorstep with enforcement and demand it done.
Mhm.
Because there's been so much generosity and niceness before this board, so much of my time, so sick of talking about it, I said at the last meeting. So, that's it,
Mike,
right? I
I
mean,
received a call from Mr. Patel, and I asked him to contact Glenn Kowalski and Brandon.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know
he
if
did not
contacted
reach
you,
out
but-
to me.
right, so like I said, at some point, we've made them aware, they have until that date, and I don't think it should be on our agenda anymore. We've done everything we can possibly do to educate them of what's gonna happen. And unless we think we're gonna accomplish something, I don't know why we would continue to talk about it. They
Yeah, I
ignore
sent
us
an email to
month
Glenn,
after month,
too.
week after week, which they can, until that date.
Might I
Right?
quickly
Yeah.
point
And I'll
out,
remember, I
Through,
promise.
Bill, through the chair, I have a question, if I can speak.
Yes, Zach.
Now I don't want to drag this out because it's already going very late, but we've already sent them a letter saying that if they don't appear before us, we can start with the fines and et cetera. So can we I think we do have the authority to issue the fines because they're not responding and they're not coming in.
I can point out the legal vehicle by which the Conservation Commission can exact work or fines at your pleasure. So the history of this is that it is a very amicable situation. They cut down a grove of pine trees within the riverfront area. And as the mea culpa, to get out of an enforcement order, they proposed bringing the coffer dam down by so many inches so the brick truck could get up. Everybody was happy with that, go for it. But then it didn't happen, so here we are now. So how can you compel that work to happen? By actually issuing that enforcement order, which the commission never did to begin with.
For the removal of the grove
For the removal of the trees, issue that enforcement, you can still do it, okay? So, with it, under the bylaw, the commission has the ability to issue fines. First, you have to put out a warning, which only lasts a day, and then you can start fining it $300 a day. And Greg and I can do the same exercise as we did for Jessica Britnell. And maybe that'll get their attention.
Because I agree with Mike. I don't want to keep dragging this out either, but I also don't want to wait until next year and then have them not have it done and then have to drag it out even more.
I'm with Zach.
I am too.
So
Okay, fine. So how do we, Brandon, how should I make this motion?
Well, what are you trying to accomplish here?
We are trying to get them, yeah,
To the point where it should be, I mean,
To get it done,
they have
so-
no respect for this board. It's obvious. They don't respond, they don't come. We've tried several ways, different registered mail, phone calls. We've gotten and talked to someone, so they know that we're actively, they've been in front of this board by once on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
They're very aware that we want their attention to work on this project.
I got a quick
That
question.
I think that we've that's what's frustrating.
'Cause
We've
there's a
put so
loophole.
much effort.
Is
It just,
yeah. No, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm talking to
yeah,
myself.
that's my frustration. The effort that we put into this with zero response. We're just asking to say, hey, on July 1st, the water's gonna be down and we're gonna take care of this. And by next July, we are gonna be like in great shape for when the trout spawn or whenever that is, and this is done. And they did what they were supposed to do, right? And if we have to babysit them and they can't reply to us and there's an avenue to start enforcement, I had asked that a few meetings ago. So if there is, I'm in favor of that. That's how I feel about this.
Okay. Wanda, how long has Mr. Patel owned the property? Do you have any idea? Has it been 1 year? Has it been 2 years?
Yeah, I guess he's owned it for a while,
Has it been 2 years?
probably. Just give me
Okay.
the paperwork here.
That's all I want to know. No further. So to get back to Zach's question, if you want to issue an enforcement order, at what point do you want to do that? Because if you said July is like getting to be deadline,
Well, I use July as a, so July, August is when I would imagine that stream to be at its least flow to maximize the best time to do this work, so.
so when do you issue the enforcement order with the fines, potentially, to compel them to do it?
2020,
When?
that's the
Oh,
last.
12/20.
So if I understand, we have the right to say if this isn't done by this date, then the enforcement starts, because you've had no response to this point.
Okay. What I want to point out, and the reason why I asked Wanda how long they've owned it,
The other one,
there's a little known loophole in the Wetlands Protection Act. It's not even in the regulations.
1998.
You have to go directly to the Wetlands Protection Act for this. Once property is exchanged hands and there's a violation created by the previous owner, the Conservation Commission has 2 years which to issue an enforcement order. After that point, the violation is grandfathered. And we're coming up on 2 years of ownership, and I don't know if they know, like, they're being savvy about this. And they would come back to us and say, well, you guys dragged your feet on the enforcement order. It's been 2 years, you have no standing.
So the only way to do this is issue an enforcement order.
Probably sooner than later.
Effective immediately.
Okay, I'm fine with issuing an enforcement order that's effective immediately.
Is that a motion, Zach?
I'll make that motion.
Yes, Jamie.
One question. What's involved in permitting this? They're not gonna be able to.
Nothing. All they have to do, Jamie, is
So
do
they
the
don't
the
need to
work.
deal with the DEP, they don't need to.
We just have to
remove the
get
dam.
the machinery out there and do it. That's all they have to do. And the commission is, so far, has been gung ho for them to do it. It would be so easy for them
It's
to
a
go.
fairly easy job too, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It mostly involves welding, I'm not welding, but
Torching.
torching.
All right. Sorry,
Okay,
Zach.
fine. I'll make a motion to issue enforcement order with fines of $300 a day against the Red Roof Inn. And what's the address again?
200 Worcester Providence Turnpike.
200 Worcester Providence to Turnpike.
One minor correction, Zach, with
Yep.
first with a warning,
Okay, with a warning,
and then the $300 a day.
and then the $300 fine.
I'll second it.
Zach made a motion, issue an enforcement order, first with a warning, followed by $300 a day fine for Red Roof Inn, 200 Worcester Providence Turnpike.
Please state the purpose of why you're issuing the enforcement order on the record.
And Mike seconded. The reason for the enforcement order is trees were cut within the past 2 or 3 years
Right.
that were in the jurisdiction without a permit. And in lieu of replacing the trees, this was decided that cutting down the dam to allow
Fish passage.
fish passage would be done in its place, and there's been no response from the Red Roof Inn to do this. All those in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
And I, Bill Wentz, vote aye.
Okay,
You
we'll
all right?
get that out immediately.
Thank you. I don't need more of a roll call than that, right? All
I
right,
think
just
you
want to
did-
make sure.
I think you did it correctly.
Yeah. Oh, good catch. Jamie, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Zach, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And I, Bill, vote aye.
At the end of the meeting, I would review your presence via.
Who's here and who's not here of our team? Okay. Thank you. The next up is, you go on to 224 Manchog Road. Mike's got to recuse on this, but do we have any updates, Brandon?
Say that one more time, sorry.
Sorry, 224 Manchog Road.
Oh, Greg has the update on this.
Greg.
Yeah, I talked to Jessica Britnell, just this morning, and she, as of today, has not done any work on the property. She has estimates from Minardi's.
Minardi's, you're right.
Minardi's,
Yeah,
I think,
sorry.
yeah.
Minardi's, somebody else.
And she's doing a planting plan, picking out plants with caviculae. But as of right now, there's been no boots on the ground or anything of that sort. She did ask me and Brandon to go out there and either flag or spray paint exactly where the commission wants a new path to go. And she also requested a new kind of a perimeter drain along the tree line. This is actually not in jurisdiction, but along the tree line above the septic system to further improve erosion conditions on the site.
Oh, like an interceptor drain up to the very top.
Yeah.
Right, but then where would that go?
Yeah, I know. That's what we gotta.
Okay.
Greg, Brandon, as long as she's aware that we're mid-April and people are out there working, planting, building,
Yeah.
digging.
Yeah, I wish that the planning part of it had already been done. Because what Greg said is that she's working on the planting plan. She had all winter to work on the planting plan. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Thank you for the update. The next thing is from planning board, the UGPG, which is what we just discussed tonight, but this is a location of the project is 51, 53, 71, and 105 Providence Road, 7, 11, 14, 26, and 34 Hatchery Drive, and 39, 39 rear, 47, 49 rear, 51, and 63 Buttonwood Ave. And this is a site plan review. Wanda, do we have any more details than this? It's for planning board.
There's not a sheet.
Well, let me just say this, because we're on their list now, and they're just notifying us that they filed with the planning board.
Yeah, and do we have any comments?
Well,
That was kind
they're
of,
in the process of filing.
right.
So I
I
guess
guess just
already in
just
process
say
filing with com.
Yeah,
in process of filing with conservation.
Bill
Okay.
can sign that and pass that
Yeah.
around too.
don't let me forget, I have one issue to bring up.
Do we, shoot an email to planning board just that we had no comment? Is that what we do? No, it's like, in process of review.
Yeah.
In process, so that's
So
what we go
she
back to
knows the
Jen.
standing.
Yeah, so this is just the applicant already is already in process of filing with Concom. Okay, so that's good, but it's great
Do
communication
you
back.
want to indicate that we're looking for the peer review of the stormwater management plan?
Oh, good call. Waiting
Very good call.
on review
Yeah, peer review comments.
of storm water management. And that's Graves, right?
Graves, yeah.
Alright, that's good catch. And then extended order for One Smith Road, which I think is the property right by the dump, Sutton Transfer Station.
Right.
That's probably covered through the extension of the COVID.
I was just about to check that, actually.
It already should be, yes.
So that one's okay.
But we had some issues with One Smith Road last year. Greg, did you go to
They
that one?
started the project without doing a pre-construction,
Yeah.
right?
We did that, but then they started working
I need those
and there was some
signatures
problems and I got on them. And it was issues with the cutting was falling over on the silt fencing and things needed to be cleaned up and fixed and your typical job site issues.
Do we need to extend the order? I mean, I wanna keep it open
All
for
right,
them,
so we have our handy dandy, bring this up on screen. I want everybody to see this.
I think this is the one you said was good until.
Shouldn't we do a site visit then if you had some issues before we extend it, just to make sure?
I don't even know if you're
What's
gonna
the
need to.
intent?
So
Oh.
what was the expiration date?
So original expiration date, sorry, 7/17/22 was, the OOC was issued on 7/17/19.
All right. So notice the tabs down at the bottom, right? So go to the tab, a permit expired after tolling really quick. Down bottom. Yeah. Oh, it's not on that one. Okay. So anyway, tolling occurred between March 10, 2020 and June 15, 2021. So that was the tolling period. It was 462 days. So if there was a permit that was active during that period, it got tolled, which means it got put in suspended animation, the timing on it, for that 462 days, at which then, once that 462 days ended, the clock started again. So that means that for this one, the new expiration date is,
October 22nd, 2023.
right, so they had, that's their new, so they don't need to ask for an extension at this time.
at this time. Okay, so we'll just let them know that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
10/23. Anything else?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
I meant
don't
to bring it
forget what
up.
you had to say.
I meant to bring it up last time. Vacation times for Greg and I. And this is a bit of my mistake. I try to stagger vacation times so there's no loss of coverage. But I'm going on a National Lampoon's European vacation in July, and I'm gonna be gone for 2 weeks. And Greg is taking his vacation also in July, in one of the weeks that I'm gonna be gone as well, and that just so happens to coincide with the first meeting or the second meeting?
Second
The
meeting.
second meeting in July
July
here.
20th.
So we're both gonna be gone the second week of July. That said, I have a third person in the office that can't cover. Obviously, he's not gonna be as well-versed as Greg and I.
The second week in July
But we
is the
c-
13th.
Yeah, and we're
Second
both gonna
meeting.
be going out. My vacation's gonna be July 10th through July 24.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Well, can we legally do this? As of right now, there's probably nothing on that July meeting.
There's nothing on July 20th.
I'm sure there will be, though. And the commission has statutory requirements for hearing new applications within 21 days.
So I think if something comes in, we have it, and if we
Yeah,
need, if
but
we need a
can
backup.
always continue it too, to the next.
Well, you can request that the applicant continue because
Right.
it's the applicant's decision to continue or not.
Can we schedule a meeting that doesn't fall on a normal meeting day? Can we have a special meeting that?
You can, but then you're gonna have like 1 week between meetings. Right, let's say you do it the first week in July, and then you do it the last week in July, then you're gonna have a meeting first thing in August, so you're gonna go like 3 weeks, and then there'll be 2 meetings within 1 week.
Right. So the 27th
been done before.
and the 3rd, it would be 2 weeks in a
What I wanna
row.
say is I apologize for the inconvenience. But we're 3 months ahead of time, so I'm
Yeah, it's
hoping
not like
this is
it's
enough
tomorrow.
time. Right.
Come on, it's gonna be fine. Pre-Greg, we made it through. I've been here without you here. It was okay. It was middle of the summer. There wasn't much going on.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
Greg gets vacation?
I know.
How about a motion?
I
to
regret
adjourn?
it.
Now,
Oh.
what week
Yeah.
is he gonna be on vacation?
I'm out the 15th to the 23rd.
Anything, and I have to do
The
a,
reason I need to know is because in case I need to get a hold of you guys or something, I won't.
I gotta do another roll call, so
I'll be
just
calling Mike.
before we finish out, I can read it off, right? Zach Peliquin is it via Zoom tonight at home. Jamie Marin, Mike McGovern, and myself, Bill Wentz, are in person.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in, Zach, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Jamie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
And I, Bill, vote aye. Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.
I see you starting to laugh over there.